Things just keep getting better for the Montreal Canadiens as Elliotte Friedman once again weighs in on the Sidney Crosby situation, and this, plus the other recent reports that have come out, has us more fired up than ever, more excited. We got to dive into the new stuff that we saw today from Elliotte Friedman, but also TSN is releasing their top 50 players in the NHL, 10 players day by day, and Nick Suzuki lands higher than he ever has before, including higher than some very, very good players. The praise is unreal, and we also got to talk about a certain Habs prospect, and Owen Protz in a recent article was named one of the most underrated, and we tend to agree, but there's also an update on his status as of today. All that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest, and we'll start with the update. Owen Protz has been loaned back to the assigned back to the Brantford Bulldogs in the OHL. Look, we knew this was coming. Maybe could have seen him in a preseason game. Didn't quite get the time, but Jesse, look, he showed out in the prospect showdown. The dude was physical. We know, like, the guy who has said to have a monopoly on violence when he's on the ice, he showed it there, not only in the game, but also in practice, just shoving one of his teammates right into the boards. And he was recently named by William Bourget in this article linked down below, one of the 4 most underrated prospects in the system. I've loved everything I've seen from Owen Protz. I think he's decently rated, but at the same time, like, maybe he is underrated because I feel like what we saw from him in the last few weeks is more than I think we anticipated from him coming out of the OHL. I've actually been pleasantly surprised. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good about him, especially I think it's a good take that he's underestimated because he could bring something really important to this defensive core going forward. Again, we have so many amazing prospects, but again, it's important to look forward to the future of what this team might need. And we know we got super offensive guys in Hutson and Dobson. That's great, but you really need those defensive guys that can really bring the physical game. They just become, I think, that much more important for this team. So I'm glad that we're shining a light. As we can see from the clip here, it seems like a lot of that skill of like bringing the pain, like it's looking early signs, Josh, like it's going to translate to the next level in that prospect showdown, showing that it's really working. Now it's going to be very interesting to see, like, can he make Team Canada for the World Juniors? Because if he can, like, that's going to be a big part of his development. But I like that simple, really effective game. I think something that we need more of in this lineup in the near future. So really happy about, how maybe he could really just like kind of complement already a very strong defensive group of what we already have.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, coming in and showing out what he did at the prospect showdown, it's like Team Canada needs a bit of an edge. Like, that's something we've known for a little while, and I think, like, that's kind of exactly what he brings. Not to mention a slight offensive upside, but he looked good. He looked like he belonged among the other big-name prospects, so it'll be very interesting to watch him. Expecting a big year from him in Brantford, hoping to make the World Junior team, and leave some love for Owen Protz down below. He's becoming a fan favorite. Again, with the departure of Romanov in that big Kirby Dach trade a little while ago, it's like Owen Protz is sort of filling that void of that guy that could just lay the body. Super excited. But speaking of being excited, this got me happy today, Jesse, because, I feel like these Habs players, we know how good they could be, but being on a bad team and maybe not getting the point totals that they could have gotten on better teams over the last few years has knocked some Habs down in certain analyst rankings. But TSN has been releasing their top 50 players, and Nick Suzuki ranks 25th. He was not even in the top 50 last year, which was insane, by the way, but 25th. Suzuki makes his first appearance on the rankings at number 25 as the Canadiens made their first foray into the Stanley Cup playoffs in 4 seasons. You make the playoffs, you get some praise on this list. Well, who were the players around him, you might ask? He ranked right ahead of Artemi Panarin, who was ranked 9th last year, and right behind Miro Heiskanen, probably the best defenseman on an unbelievable Dallas Stars team. Jesse, I love what we're seeing now. Finally, people are turning the corner on Nick Suzuki. And with him even wanting to take more of a penalty-killing role this year, as he said, with more high-skilled players on the team, a team that's looking to score more goals than ever, he's going to have more responsibility, and I actually expect him to even jump up these rankings, despite what some fans and maybe some other teams would want you to hear.
And this is exactly the type of hype that we need to see for Nick Suzuki to make Team Canada. And I mean, it's well-deserved over his body of work of what he's been doing, not just last year, really willing the Montreal Canadiens into the playoffs, but really in those previous years as well. He just keeps building and getting better and better. And it's only right that he's ranked, ahead of some people that even have better offensive numbers than him, just in pure points, because of what he brings defensively. Finally, Josh, he's starting to be recognized for this, and this is an absolute breakthrough. And I think, there is important takeaways from this as we're leading up to the selection for Team Canada, which, by the way, is going to happen very soon. So that's, it's going to happen quicker than we think. So Nick Suzuki is really going to be motivated to get off to a strong start to a season. But important to note, Josh, also ahead of Vasilevsky, but maybe more importantly, just in context relative, is that he's ahead of Brandon Hagel.
Yes.
Somebody who he's going to be looking to compete against to really get this spot for Team Canada. So again, he just brings so much to the game. One of the best two-way centers in the entire NHL. I think that really matters. I just want to see him continue to climb up and up this list because you have to remember he's younger than some of these guys too that he's around. So you have to expect as he's coming into his prime, he's just going to continue to climb that and really get the respect that he deserves while helping the Montreal Canadiens a whole lot.
Oh, for sure. And one thing we've seen a lot too is that like from across all sports, really, national teams that have chemistry over multiple world championships or four nations or Olympics, those are the teams that tend to overperform relative to their talent. And getting a guy who's young like Suzuki in on a team like this early, a guy that could play 3-4 Olympics, maybe four's pushing it, but like, something like 3 Olympics or whatever, like, that could be very valuable. And again, ranked 25th, you're absolutely right, ahead of Brandon Hagel. And again, it's just TSN's ranking, but I don't think it'd be surprising to see that be pretty close to consensus across the hockey world. I thought it was interesting. The Lightning were 30, 29, and 28 with Hedman, Vasilevsky, and Hagel. And they had someone else further down, and I'm sure they'll have Nikita Kucherov there probably in the top 5. But leave some love for Suzuki down below. Great shot on the Olympic connotations for this whole thing. It's unreal to see the respect he's getting finally. And I think he's just going to keep proving people, well, doubters wrong, I should say, proving us right, because we know what he can be. And you know what he could be? He could be captain for a long time. You know what is another captain for a long time? The Sidney Crosby. And we got to talk about this Elliotte Friedman recent thing here. We saw this from NHL Rumor Report on the Fan Hockey Show. Elliotte Friedman, he's getting asked about Sidney Crosby everywhere. He wants to talk about Sidney Crosby everywhere for good reason. This guy is one of the hottest tickets right now in the business. He said, Sidney Crosby potential trade, quote, I think there's people around him who have tried to warm him up to the idea of it. People were saying to him, you should be in the playoffs. And this directly mirrors what we've heard from his agent, right? See, his agent even said, I believe Sid should be in the playoffs every single year. Again, right now, he still is committed to Pittsburgh, but let's just look at some other tweets that we've seen recently, right? Chris Johnson from The Athletic, just about 4 days ago, talking about the futures of McDavid, Kaprizov, Hughes, and Crosby. He'd be surprised if all of those players started next season in the same cities they currently call home. Friedman, again, just a couple days ago, about Crosby. He's considered it, what it would look like, what it would mean, where it would be. I think he's done all that. It's going to happen on this timetable. Only he decides. Arpen Basu saying it makes too much sense for the Montreal Canadiens. Jesse, it just keeps getting better every single day. Again, is it imminent? Hard to ever say, and we really don't know. I think Pittsburgh is going to try to evaluate their team because they still haven't traded Brian Rust for Carver Kell. Like, they still have some talented players, but at the end of the day, the biggest analysts are talking about Crosby every single day, and every single time, Montreal is mentioned right alongside him.
And if it isn't Elliotte Friedman here, like, we're probably not speaking about this, but he's giving us some information on what's clearly going on in this situation where close, people to Crosby, friends, are trying to kind of sway his opinion on it. He's probably wanting to stay in Pittsburgh or maybe kind of a little bit undecided. They're trying to kind of nudge him in one sort of direction. But Josh, we know ultimately who's responsible really for all of this at the most. And you have to feel like it's Pat Brisson, right? Yeah. Like Sidney Crosby's agent, who said flat out himself that he feels that Sidney Crosby should be playing in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Now, for me, like, this brings like a whole interesting element in this because like, that's a very controversial thing for an agent to say, unless you have the go-ahead from the player you're representing to say it. You'd have to think, like, otherwise it gets you in hot water. Crosby would be like, why did you say that? Like, I want to stay here in Pittsburgh. Like, you're causing waves for nothing. It would lead you to think that there is something behind this. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Elliotte Friedman, again, one of the top insiders, is really kind of, again, fueling fire day after day, is saying that there's maybe a little bit something behind the scenes that we're kind of starting to kind of see the effects of through the media and really create some ripples. So again, just very interesting to note just that whole dynamic there. But again, the fact that Crosby didn't go too against what, Pat Brisson was saying as well is very interesting to note. So anyway, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Apparently it seems to be like plenty of people are thinking it's kind of trade line dependent. Yeah. For me, that doesn't really make sense. I don't think like there's too much mystery as to where the Penguins are at this point in time. Like if it's going to happen, it can really happen at any point in time here going forward. But again, it's obviously the people closest to Crosby that are really the ones responsible for shaking this up the most right now.
Oh, and yeah, absolutely. Because, look, you're probably looking at Sis like, listen, man, I want to see you win another cup, right? I want to see you enjoy this time. And look, with Malkin potentially on the way out, we can talk about the situation in Pittsburgh as long as we want, because it is a very, I don't know if I want to say tumultuous, but I think it kind of is. Like, we're on the end of an era here in Pittsburgh, and Dubas has some choices to make. But again, like you said, at the end of the day, it's Crosby, it's Brisson, it's the people around him, and all we can do is take a look at what they're saying. Look, when Freeman does think a lot of things, but Freeman doesn't often just go out and say big things like that if he doesn't at least have some reasonable indication that it's happening. But listen, let us know your thoughts down below, because I'm never going to get tired of this Crosby talk. I don't think anyone is, because the idea that this is going to happen is not going to die until he is a Montreal Canadien, basically. So, hey, if you want Sidney Crosby to be a Montreal Canadien, hit the subscribe button down below. Good things happen when you subscribe to the channel. That'll do it for this episode. Hey, if you enjoyed, leave a like while you're down there. Thank you for tuning in every single day. Season's right around the corner, and we cannot wait. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.